When I first met Adrian, everyone used the same words to describe him. Solid. Reliable. The kind of man who shows up. He brought soup when people were sick. He stayed late to help coworkers finish projects that weren't his. He drove his mother to appointments, fixed his sister's leaking sink, carried folding chairs after family parties without being asked. Even my friends used to say, "You got lucky. Men like that are rare." And for a long time, I agreed. At the beginning, being loved by Adrian felt like being sheltered from weather. If my car made a strange sound, he was already under the hood. If I mentioned I had a stressful week, he'd appear with groceries I hadn't asked for. If I came home tired, he would tell me to sit down and start tidying the kitchen before I could even take my shoes off. It looked like care. The part one didn't understand yet was that Adrian never did a favor and let it stay a favor. He stored them. Not in any visible way at first. Nothing so obvious that I could point to it and call it a problem. It was more like a shift in the room. He would insist on handling something. Then later, if I disagreed with him, his voice would sharpen and suddenly the conversation wasn't about the thing we were arguing over anymore. It became about everything he had ever done. The first time it happened, I almost missed it. We were supposed to spend Saturday with my parents. That morning, he asked if we could leave early because he wanted the rest of the day to relax. I said I had promised my mother I'd help sort through some boxes in the garage, and it might take a little while. He went quiet. Then he laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "Of course," he said. "Why would my time matter?" I stared at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" He started listing things. He had cleaned the gutters last weekend. He had driven me to the airport at 5 in the morning last month. He had stayed up with me when I had that awful flu in January. He had canceled poker night to assemble the bookshelf I ordered. I remember standing there holding my car keys, thinking, none of those things were the topic. But somehow, they had become the price of disagreeing with him. After that, I started noticing the pattern everywhere. If he volunteered to help with my errands and I later wanted an evening to myself, I was ungrateful. If he cooked 3 nights in a row and I asked him not to interrupt me on a work call, I was cold. If he spent his Sunday fixing things around the house that did not need immediate fixing, then got tired and snappish, it was suddenly my fault for never appreciating what he does. The strange thing was that he rarely asked directly for rest, affection, reassurance, or help. He performed need instead of speaking it. He would overextend himself until he was full of resentment, then hand me the emotional bill. And the worst part? To everyone else, he looked incredible. At parties, people praised him for always doing the dishes. At work, he was the guy who took on extra tasks no one wanted. In his family, he was the dependable one, the son who never said no. Meanwhile, I was living with the version of him nobody saw, the man who sighed loudly while folding towels, the man who said, "It's fine," in a tone that meant it absolutely was not fine, the man who would offer help with both hands and then act abandoned when no one worshipped him for it. I started feeling something I was ashamed to admit. I didn't feel cared for. I felt managed. One Tuesday night, I came home after a brutal day and found that he had reorganized my home office. Not cleaned it, reorganized it. My notebooks were stacked by size. My chargers were wound into neat loops. My desk drawers had little labels inside them like a supply closet. I just stood there staring. He smiled like he was waiting for applause. "Do you like it?" he asked. I tried to keep my tone gentle. "I know you meant well, but I really wish you hadn't done this without asking." I had a system. His face changed so fast it gave me whiplash. "A system?" he said. "Your system was piles everywhere. I spent 2 hours fixing this for you." I didn't ask you to. The second I said it, the room went still. He looked at me like I had slapped him. Then it all came pouring out. He said nobody ever appreciated him. He said he was tired of giving and giving. He said I had no idea how much he carried. He said any other woman would be grateful to have a husband who actually did things. And then came the ledger. Not just the office. Everything. The pharmacy run when I had a migraine. The shelves he mounted in the laundry room. The dinner he made for my friends. The form he helped me fill out. The oil change he scheduled. The weekend he skipped a trip because my aunt was in town. On and on. It was like listening to a prosecutor build a case against me, using moments I had once mistaken for love. I let him finish. Then I asked the question that had been waiting under my tongue for months. "Would you still do these things if they didn't buy you anything later?" He blinked. Not angry, not defensive, just stunned, as if no one had ever translated his language out loud before. He tried to answer, but what came out first was, "That's not fair." And maybe it wasn't. Not perfectly. People are more complicated than a single accusation. Adrian was not a cartoon villain. He was not helping people, because he woke up every morning plotting emotional extortion. But he was living inside a bargain nobody else had agreed to. He believed sacrifice should produce security. He believed overfunctioning should earn devotion. He believed if he anticipated everyone's needs well enough, he would never have to risk saying his own out loud. And when that secret system failed, he turned furious. That night I told him something I should have said much sooner. Doing things for me is not the same as being honest with me. He sat down after that. Really sat down. No pacing. No dramatic sighing. No clattering dishes in the sink to prove a point. Just silence. I told him I was exhausted. Not because he never helped, but because his help never felt free. It came wrapped in pressure. It made me feel watched. It made me feel like I was always one disagreement away from being handed a receipt for my own life. I told him that if he needed rest, he could say he needed rest. If he wanted appreciation, he could say he wanted appreciation. If he felt lonely, overlooked, or unimportant, he could say that too. But I would not keep participating in a relationship where every unsolicited act of service became collateral. He cried, which I did not expect. Not loud movie crying. Just the kind where someone looks almost embarrassed by their own face. He admitted that when he was growing up, being useful was the safest version of himself. Neediness was mocked in his house. Wanting comfort got you ignored, but being helpful got praise. Being easy got approval. Being the one who solved problems got you a place in the room. So he had built an adult life around never asking directly. He would give and give until the giving itself became a demand. That explanation mattered, but it did not erase the damage. The next few weeks were awkward in a way I actually respected. He started asking before taking over my tasks. He caught himself when he fished for gratitude. Once, halfway through saying, "After everything I did this week," he stopped and started over. What I mean is, I'm burnt out, and I need tonight to myself. That landed completely differently, because that was not manipulation. That was truth. I wish I could tell you one conversation fixed everything. It didn't. What it did was kill the performance, and once the performance was gone, we could finally see the real problem. He wasn't just afraid of being unappreciated. He was afraid that if he stopped earning love, there might not be any there waiting for him. That's a much sadder story than "my husband is too nice." It's also a much more dangerous one, because from the outside, martyrdom looks like virtue. Inside a relationship, it can feel like living beside a vending machine that keeps handing you things you didn't ask for, then shaking with rage when the coins don't fall out. I still believe Adrian loved me, but love without honesty becomes theater, and care with a hidden invoice is not care. It's pressure wearing a halo. The most peaceful week we've had in a long time happened after he said 6 simple words I had been waiting years to hear. I don't want to do that. Not, it's fine. Not, I already took care of it. Not, nobody appreciates me. Just the truth. It turns out truth is a lot less romantic than sacrifice, and a lot easier to live with.
Thank you for watching. If this story pulled you in, do me one favor. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so the next one finds you the moment it drops. Remember, nothing is ever just what it seems. See you on the next one.